Hello Guardians, it is Ebontis here, and we are coming up to the end of Season 9. It literally ends tomorrow. So depending on if you guys have anything left to do, remember, as of reset tomorrow, it's going to be 9 a.m. Pacific. I think they're going to kick you out of the game. 10 a.m. Pacific, the new season, Season of the Worthy, goes live. But we've been in the game for another 3 months. We've got a season to go over, some activities, thoughts, opinions, things to look forward to, things that we've learned, and things we would like to see change. So let's get into this review for Season of Dawn right now. Alright, so when we consider Season of the Dawn, we've got different activities, we've got different things we've experienced, we've got weapons, exotics, and a lot of stuff to cover, but I'm going to start with the activities. Main piece first is the Sundial. I think a lot of people have definitely seen the Sundial as an improvement over Vex Offensive. That's kind of an easy gimme. Vex Offensive really didn't have a high bar. It was separate from Shadowkeep, so Season of the Undying didn't really have as much to it. But, of course, you also have the comparisons of the Sundial versus Menagerie. Menagerie is made by a bigger team. It was a whole different studio that helped with that expansion. And this is Bungie kind of more on their own. They're definitely going to be on somewhat smaller scales, but I do see this as an improvement. Now, you've got some good and bad to the Sundial. You've got better boss variation versus Vex Offensive, because Vex Offensive was the same thing the whole way through, every time. Same pretty much mechanics the whole way through. So you've got better boss variation because we had 3 different bosses as we went through, plus Enotom in the end of the Voltron, completely separate boss room, breaking them apart. That was pretty cool. But even during the weeks leading up to Enotom, we had 3 different Scions that had different mechanics to them. It wasn't just the same guy for 10 weeks, and then the last 3 we had the Undying Mind. So improvement in the boss variation is good. Personally, I would have liked to have seen each of the bosses kind of rotate between, the past, present, and future. We know we started in the future with the first one. Maybe the second of the 2 Scions was in the past, and the third one was in the present. Something like that, just to mix up where you would fight the bosses, so it wasn't always in just the top of that boss room. I understand, again, when it comes to making a play space, it's not always easy. So if you build a boss space, it's helpful to be able to use it multiple times. But I do think boss variety would have been good. That being said, when we fought Enotom, that was actually really, really cool to go completely, again, more into slightly not quite the corridors of time, but definitely a different feel, completely different arena. And on top of that, every so often when we broke Enotom apart, we had to go into that separate, kind of teleported into that separate realm where we killed that single Scion that had broken apart, still dealing with its mechanics. All in all, not too shabby. Come back out and do that 2 more times. Enotom, huge upgrade over Vex Offensive, but you still have this thing against Menagerie. Menagerie has so many different activities. Now, we had 3 different areas to go between, but you're still mostly, capture a plate, the dunking the fireball, the dunking the orb to cause the fire to rain down on top of the boss. That was kind of cool. As for spawning the bosses kind of in the present, where you kill the 3 Minotaurs, then you get the Cabal boss to spawn, do that a couple times over, just kind of got harder and harder. That was okay, not a bad one, but, okay. And then we had the capturing of the plates. It was fitting for kind of a Vex area. But overall, when you go in the Menagerie, you've got, dunking different orbs. You still do have capturing the plates. You've got just a little more variety in there, just due to the scale of it. So, not as big. And also the other piece is the loot pool. Now, versus Vex Offensive, we had like 4 weapons. We've got quite a few more in the loot pool for Sundial. And then the Obelisks we'll get to in a little while. But even with the Sundial having 8 different weapons, that was double the difference of Vex Offensive, so that was good. But in comparison, we had no armor. Absolutely no armor, even from the Legend Sundial. So if you're going to go run Legend Sundial and you're like, hey, I got my 1 weapon for the week, I can't go run Legend for 1 again. There was no perk to really doing Legend. So finding a way to make these difficult experiences worthwhile is going to be an important piece, I feel. Because if you're going to go run Legend Sundial 1 time, you get your pinnacle drop and you're done, there's no reason to go back in there for anything else. You can go get the same number of drops, same everything else from the standard Sundial, and it's a lot easier. So, and it's match made. So again, it's the Legend, the end game scale of a seasonal activity. Kind of want to see where they hopefully evolve that in the future. Now, the second thing we've got is the Obelisks that were kind of a new addition this season. They worked as NPCs. You could actually level them up. They had different perks. They had bounties to them. And all in all, I think the Obelisks were generally positive, outside the EDZ in the beginning being next to impossible to interact with. That was a little bit of a annoyance, but generally, overall, I like what the Obelisks can potentially bring to other NPCs. Now, What I'm talking is the Obelisk enhancements, and then having things like mods that you can get from them, some bounties and stuff. Most vendors, NPCs, they have bounties. That's fine. You have a way to level them up as well, but usually leveling them up just gets you an engram. Same thing here. The only thing that I really like with the Obelisks, I hope they can take to other vendors, even if faction rallies don't really come back, something they could do is these type of enhancements. You know, when you defeat Fallen with precision shots, you have a higher chance to drop additional Dustlight shards. It doesn't have to be anything major, but some of these things as you level up a NPC would be nice to see, just a general buff that sticks with you for good. Same thing here. It's like increased chance to collect additional polarized fractaline when completing strikes. Maybe it's not full at fractaline, obviously, because that's going to be going away tomorrow. But maybe when you finish strikes, you get a chance at, 1 more token, 2 more tokens, 3 more tokens, whatever. I mean, some chance, a higher chance at a legendary. Just some way to level up these obelisks, or in the future, hopefully level up NPCs with this type of style. Now, I also like the idea of something specifically coming from certain places. So if you have to level up, the Drifter for Gambit, means you probably got to play Gambit to level up and go get, maybe a certain mod that they've got or something of that nature. And they could work on introducing maybe a seasonal mod for each of the vendors, giving them a little bit of life and a little bit of love. So Obelisks themselves were fine. I mean, they were basically a way to choose which weapons when you linked them to the Sundial. I actually thought that was kind of cool, giving you a little bit of a choice of what you could pick between. Overall, I would say take what they've learned from the Obelisks, like leveling up, have ongoing enhancements for certain activities, certain things that you can unlock with them over time. Maybe some stuff is out there way far away. Maybe I got to get Zavala up to rank like 50 or something this season, run a bunch of strikes if I want to get some, exotic cosmetic from them. Give them a little bit of love and take the idea of an Obelisk and put it in the other vendors. So overall, kind of digging the idea. Hopefully it gets put other places. Now, while we're sitting at the Obelisk, there is one other thing we can talk about, and that is Charged with Light. In theory, Charged with Light has a decent concept to it because you can do a specific thing, become charged with light by accomplishing said task, and using that light to either buff yourself, give you some extra damage, have a chance to be a little beefier. If you take damage, it's going to make your health pool that much, stronger, so you're harder to kill. There's a lot of different buffs to this. Kind of the feedback that I got about this, though, it wasn't very well explained. There were really no tooltips. I mean, you could look at it and figure it out if you read through the perks and tried a bunch of stuff, but also you've got the cost. You've got mod components costing 10. Some people didn't know if these were only going to last for, 3 months. So am I going to spend 120 mod components if I don't have a lot in the first place? Say I'm a new player. And also you look at some of the cost of these things. You got 5 energy just to use this with Charged with Light perk. And then that's going to go ahead and take away from other mods I can use on my armor. When you're talking about scavenger perks and, aiming and dexterity and all of those things, unflinching, all of those are ones that people typically want to hold on to. So these really need to be appealing, or the balance of the cost of some of these I think needs to come down. There's one of these that is worth 7 energy. You have to basically max that thing out with like legendary shards, enhancement cores, and then to be able to use the hidden perk on a couple of these, which is a cool idea. You actually had to start using, really just completely diving into this mentality on another piece of armor. You got to have another one that's going to use the Charged with Light build that you get. Also in this one, you got to take it to 8 energy. Say if you want to get, scavenger on shotguns, if it's an arc perk or whatever it is. It's an expensive cost, and I think when they introduce some of these things, I'd like to see them bring the cost of them down to have the use be a little more broad. And then if they take, okay, hey, this is something that's, we're changing the cost of these, excuse me, we're changing the cost of some of these things because they are powerful, and now we've seen it. They have the 3-month cycle on some of these things. I'd like to see them let us experiment with them with a little more ease of use and easier, cost of entry. So then we can kind of get a feel of, hey, what's useful and what's not. Because I can honestly tell you, most people did not even hardly use Charged with Light. But in theory, I kind of like the idea of doing specific tasks, words are hard, getting a bit of a buff of some way that you can actually kind of use as a consumable and then accomplish something else. So theoretically, not too shabby, just not executed in the best way. Not really, ease of access isn't there, and also the ease of understanding for many people wasn't there either. So Charged with the Light, definitely need a better onboarding process, and especially when it's in its trial phase in the first time we ever see it, don't make it so costly that it's prohibitive that most people aren't going to want to do it. I mean, these mods could have costed like 2 mod components and be like, okay, cool, I'll experiment, 1 or 2 energy, okay, I'll throw it in, okay, I'm getting a feel for what of it. Maybe some of it could have been broken, but at least more people would have been using it, it was popular, and they could get a feel of where they need to balance it out. That's just me. Let me know your guys' thoughts below. On to the next piece. Now, I would definitely say one of the highlights of the season has been Saint 14. The 2 missions where we actually got to go rescue him, one in the past, and then in the future, were really well done missions. I enjoyed the experiences. The feel of the missions were pretty awesome. Actually learned, depending on if you went in with a group or solo, it would definitely kind of scale, so you kind of got to feel the gravity of the situations. And especially the second one where we were saving Saint 14. He was trapped. He was kind of doing those like PvP callouts. We were getting a tease that he might be doing trials. Overall, the missions were really good. Saint 14, just love his accent, everything he's brought to the game. Overall, Saint 14, for one, just the lore implications of bringing one of the most famed titans back from time and the dead. And, you know, helping Rasputin find his long-lost buddy. We never got to see those two really interact, which is kind of sad. I would love to see just a bro hug between the two. But overall, Saint 14 is a great high point of this entire season, because we've had saving him. We've got the tease that he's going to be the one helping build the beacon. He's one of the reasons Trials is coming back. All of these things from Saint 14, all generally very positive, liking those quite a bit. Now, on the other side, we also have the Quarters of Time puzzle, which was kind of linked to everything going on. Now, the Quarters of Time puzzle itself, in my opinion, was very cool for a large piece of the community. There were ways to get involved. You could even just submit a screenshot. You could do your data analyzation, stuff like that. Some people may not have found it that fun, so again, it's not for everyone. But I would say overall, the Quarters of Time puzzle was very cool, very in-depth, like building the maze, going through it. But I know there were people who left out, felt it was only for the streamers as well. So some more in-game visualization of, hey, if I do get this picture, I'm able to, you know, contribute it somehow in-game, as opposed to people building programs and Excel spreadsheets outside of the game. It's always one of those things, like Bungie bet on the community to build all this stuff to make it happen. They thought it might have taken us longer. But generally, the Quarters of Time puzzle was really cool because you're just exploring. You can kind of go on forever. How does this all work? What's going on? So overall, it was cool. Like, we had the first piece we went through. We got the text and stuff that we got to listen to. And then we got another image at the bottom of the floor, which was a whole different issue. And that was the big giant puzzle. So the Quarters of Time was cool. I kind of wish it didn't have to leave. It would be cool to leave some of that stuff in the game. But on the other side, we have the reward. And this is where we're going to get into the exotics. Now, exotics this season, we got 3 of them, at least with regards to weapons. The first one is Bastion. Now, this is the last one we got, but as we just got done talking about Quarters of Time, we're starting here. Now, the fact that Bastion was on the calendar, I think, set this thing up to never live up to the expectations of the Quarters of Time puzzle. You had people that had to find like 5,040 images, build a map, go through the 30 instance run just to get to the end, so you could start the quest, you go through the quest, you do it, and you get the exotic that was on the calendar. I think they've learned. They heard the feedback that in and of itself, this thing could never live up to what people wanted. People wanted a Raise Lighter, they wanted Gallahorn, they wanted a sword that could change Arc, Solar, and Void, and we get a kinetic fusion rifle. Unfortunately, even the way I say it, it sounds like it fell down. Now, it is a 3-burst fusion rifle. Some of that damage bypasses elemental shields. It's an amazing looking weapon. The art on it, no question. Absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous weapon. But unfortunately, it didn't quite... I don't think it ever had a chance to live up to the expectations people wanted. And the fact that it was on the calendar in the future, not in the same timing as the Quarters of Time puzzle, really set everybody up with just kind of a bad taste in their mouth when they finally got it. Is it the worst gun in the world? No. But is it living up to a crazy community puzzle? I don't think it quite hit the nail on the head. Seen some people use it, have decent work with it, but overall, I think this one either needed to be separate from the Quarters of Time puzzle, be hidden, a little stronger, something to really kind of give this thing the time value effort of the Quarters of Time puzzle versus this exotic. I just don't know if it was quite there. That's me, but let me know, of course, your thoughts as I'm going through all this. Comment below about anything I'm saying. Let me know your opinions. Now, the second exotic is Symmetry. Now, this is the one that came with the Season Pass. I still have an opinion that I don't think exotics should be just handed to us when I log in for the season. I'm hoping that changes maybe year 4, because it still seems to be going on in Season of the Worthy, because we're getting the Tommy gun. But generally, for a scout rifle, it's not too shabby. Overall, it's a 260 RPM, and you've got 2 different pieces to it. You've got Revolution. This weapon fires full auto, so full auto scouts, always a pretty valuable thing people like. Hold reload to swap to Arc Seekers. Arc Seekers track towards the enemies that you target. And to pair with that, precision hits build up dynamic charge, swapping to Arc Seeker modes, increases damage and partially reloads the magazine based on the number of charges. So you can have a lot of charges that track that are powerful if you get those precision hits first. Now, I don't see it as breaking the meta, but I do think it's a fairly unique weapon. Nice to see them kind of really finding ways to make scout rifles unique. Again, art team absolutely crushed it on this weapon as well. Looks gorgeous. The art style is really cool, both this and the ornament that we can get for it. And then in turn, the actual 2 switching fire modes for a scout rifle definitely gives us a very unique feel to it. Overall, probably my favorite of the 3 exotics this season, probably hands down. Now, the other exotic we got this season was Devil's Ruin. Overall, it is an unstoppable weapon, so that's actually been useful in Sundial and melting some of those solar shields and unstoppable enemies. But I think that's kind of where I see it having a specific use. Now, the quest for this one, while it was fairly interesting, you walk around an empty PvP map and pick up frames, which is just kind of like hide and go seek, or a scavenger hunt. It was the dialogue that came with this quest, which was, for me, really, really cool. I've never sat there and listened to 200 seconds of dialogue just to see if there's going to be more, because you're listening to Shax and Osiris and Saint, all of these vendors and NPCs talking and having some personality. And not everybody may love that, but if you love the lore building, you love hearing those two have different personalities. Saint 14 and Shax talking about you just give these Guardians weapons. Hey, they earn them. They get kills for them. These things, you know, how does it work? It shoots bullets. Like, all the little one-liners in that dialogue is so good. While the sidearm may not be that memorable, the laser beam on it's actually fairly cool. I do enjoy that for melting enemies. It's got some pretty good power to it. I do think the quest didn't hit for everybody. Not everyone's going to be this epic journey of going through this crazy thing and fighting a bunch of stuff. The dialogue, I would love to see more of that in many more places, as opposed to just standing there listening to it, because I found the things fairly quickly. But overall, the dialogue, very cool. Gun, not too shabby, but I think Symmetry is my top. This is number 2, and then Bastion, sadly, one of the hardest ones for everybody to get, is pretty low on the totem pole for me. But that's just me. As for exotic armor, we also got one for each class. The Severance Enclosure is the one for the Titan. Defeating a Guardian with a melee or combatant with a finisher unleashes a damaging explosion. There are so many other exotics that kind of outshine this one. I tried it out for a little while. You get a little baby explosion when you do a melee or a finisher. It's not really going to do that much. Unless you're just surrounded by, you know, a whole bunch of Thrall, even with the buff that is coming in Season of the Worthy, I don't see it like really being this big giant standout that's going to be worth the risk versus reward, as opposed to even Syntheseps making your, you know, supers hit stronger, or Actimore Rig that's going to go with auto rifles, or just double grenades. This one doesn't have enough of a standout feature to me that makes it worth using, so this one is definitely a miss on my choice. Now, somehow lower than the Severance Enclosure is the Prometheum Spur. I know this exists, but I don't know of anybody who's been using this thing. Embers of Light, while Daybreak is active, defeating combatants or guardians creates a healing and empowering rift at their location. So the general idea, you're in your Daybreak super, you're either casting flame swords, whatever you're doing, when you defeat enemies at their location, not where you are, unless I'm reading this wrong and I could be wrong, but either way, when you defeat enemies, you make a healing and empowering rift at their location, so I'm reading it right. All these enemies that I'm throwing these flaming swords at, there's going to be a rift on the grounds out there. Not helping me, not where my fire team is at by me, out where the enemies died. So I have to do this and then run up and stand in the rifts. I mean, it's cool to get a double rift, but it's not at a good location that's beneficial to me. And this is just not something I'm probably ever going to use. So this one I think is probably the biggest miss of the season. Hopefully this gets some type of tweak later on, or even just a full rework, because I'm just not seeing the use for it. Maybe somebody in the comments, let me know if you've had amazing luck with this thing. I'd be surprised if you have, though. The final exotic this season is kind of a cute exotic, basically. It's the most functional of the 3. Dodging leaves behind an explosive that detonates after a short delay, damaging enemies around it. Now, hunters are going to dodge quite a bit. If you are close proximity, you feel like you do need to dodge. Leaving a bomb where you just were actually kind of is cool. I don't think it's overly powerful. It's not going to one-shot a Guardian. But leaving it, and again, you look at other exotics and they do tend to outshine this. We can't wear 3 different exotics, so my dodges do this, and I get, you know, better hand cannon reload with lucky pants and stuff like that. I get one exotic to use, and just having a small little bomb that's like there from where I dodged, not going to stand out. Now, of the 3, at least this one I could see some function for. You're up close in PvP, you dodge, they're trying to find you, it explodes, you get one punch, you might kill them. at least I can find in my head some function for it, but still overall not amazing standout or anything of that nature. More just kind of novelty, if that makes sense, on all of these exotics. Oh, I do a finisher, there's explosion. Hey, I dodge, there's a little bomb. Hey, I throw a daybreak, flaming sword. Hey, there's a rift way across the room. Not really overall going to serve very high in the meta or any major functions on any of these exotics, but of the three, I'd say the Hunter's got the best of the three, even if that's a pretty low bar. Alright, for ritual weapons, which we actually haven't heard anything about the ritual weapons coming next season, so maybe we'll just log in and find out. Kind of like the surprise, at least, so we don't know. We've got a sidearm here that was the Vanguard one. It's not bad. Sidearms, again, aren't terrible. You've got Outlaw. The big perk on this one is Osmosis, so you've actually got the ability to use the weapon that matches your subclass. So basically Osmosis, as well as a perk to discuss, is going to be one of those that is basically for solo Nightfalls that have match game involved. That's really the only time you're going to need to be able to turn a kinetic into an energy type weapon to be able to handle different shield types if you're running into a crazy Nightfall where there's Arc, Solar, and Void, and you can't set up your loadout to handle all three. So it has a little bit of a perk. I mean, for a sidearm, it's got stability, you've got range, alloy mag, not the most favorite. But Outlaw or fourth time's the charm. Fourth time is okay, but honestly on a sidearm, you may not hit 2 extra bullets. Not going to work as good as reload if you do get that kill. And then, of course, also Swashbuckler here being at least something as you're going to be up close. I would probably run it as Outlaw and Swashbuckler. But generally, I don't think sidearms are going to just blow everybody away, and I still think there's better options out there. This wasn't a difficult one to get. I think most people probably had it in about 4 or 5 strikes. It was pretty easy. But unfortunately, the level of difficulty to get it kind of matches with its power and skill, or power. It's not that powerful, not really a standout weapon. Next we go to Crucible. We have the Komodo, which I think more people used Obelisks to get this thing than they probably will ever use this thing, and they figured out, hey, Obelisks isn't bad. I'm probably never going to use this, though. It's a linear fusion rifle, which they're in a better spot because snipers are going to be coming down, but we all just farmed for our line in the sand, which is likely to outshine this thing. Now, you've got charge time on it. It's a linear fusion. You've got no distractions or moving target. Eye in the storm, box breathing. I mean, if you go no distractions and box breathing, maybe your first shot's going to hit like a truck. But generally, I would say Komodo's not one. It's, of the three, the worst, because we've got other linear fusions. Line in the sand is going to be popular. Unless there's a point where there is a reason to use a linear fusion rifle and there's a solar burn going on, I don't see this getting a whole lot of use out of anybody, especially as it's a PvP weapon. I don't think I'm ever going to see myself getting killed by this in PvP. So, I don't know. Sometimes these ritual weapons, it's nice that we have different perks to pick from. Gives you some variety of function of a gun. But I don't think this one really stands out, and I think that's the issue of rituals having just standard perks and choices as opposed to a unique perk. And I guess that's just a decision they have to make in how they want to handle some of these things. So right now, Komodo, I don't think a whole lot of people are going to miss putting this thing in their vault or even dismantling it and pulling it out of your collections later on. Python is actually probably the best of the three, just because as a shotgun, we've got a Void shotgun now. Got some decent reload speed. You've got Feeding Frenzy if you get with kills, or even Overflow. Overflow and 1-2 punch is actually what I was kind of talking about with my chat yesterday, and they're saying that's kind of the way to go. So picking up special or heavy ammo reloads this weapon, especially if you build yourself with shotgun perks. When you have to grind this thing out, if you loaded yourself up with shotgun scavengers and ammo finders, you're running with shotgun ammo like constantly. So then you can actually load this thing beyond its normal capacity, and then on top of that, 1-2 punch, hitting an enemy with every pellet of a shot increases melee damage. You shoot them, you punch them, you run over ammo, it reloads, you've got even more. You're just in the mix the whole time. So generally, Python, definitely the best of the three by far. Actually not too shabby of a shotgun for the perks that we have. Overall, this is the shining example of what a ritual weapon could at least be reasonable for. The other two, kind of, strike one, strike two, but at least it wasn't strike three. Python, not too shabby. If you didn't get it, definitely one to work on getting later on, because it's actually decent for a shotgun, which is not always easy to say about these ritual weapons. Alright, Guardians, we did get quite a few new weapons this season. Some are hopefully going to be useful. Perfect Paradox is just always a cool weapon. It's been just a unique looking shotgun. Kind of digging it for a while. It's got some good perks on it. Trophy Hunter. This is actually a sniper from one of the Scions, apparently, so it's got a decent little bit of lore behind it. And as this thing can roll with Vorpal Weapon and Triple Tap and Extended Mag, this one has a chance to be a decent legendary sniper going into face bosses and stuff. I don't think it's going to be crazy good, but it's got a chance to be reasonable for a sniper for boss damage going into, next season, as we've got lots of changes going there. Pyroclastic Flow. For a rocket launcher, most rocket launchers not really amazing right now unless they just get a buff, but it doesn't sound like they're going to be. Mostly just because you get the one shot, and then if you miss that shot, it's absolutely brutal. You don't have as many. This at least does come with tracking on it. You can also get cluster bombs, so it's able to put out a decent amount of damage. But again, rocket launchers just don't stand out really against anything else at this point. We'll have to see if they make a comeback. Not a bad rocket launcher because it's tracking and cluster optional. Other than that, nothing too special. Some of the main stands out for the rest of the weapons. Steel Feather Repeater has a chance to be pretty good, mostly next season, just because autos are actually getting a buff. So farm this season for a weapon next season, kind of weird, but, you know, I guess prepping for the future. Black Scorpion, we've had it around. Decently fast-firing scout rifle, but nothing too crazy. Breachlight is a pretty popular one from everybody between Vorpal against, you know, Guardians and their supers, so you can knock them out pretty quickly if you need to switch over. A lot of people digging Breachlight. There are a lot of grinding going on for this one. Bygones, of course, not a new weapon. That's not shocking. Marty's Retribution, or Martyr's Retribution, however you say it. This one has been just a nice way to see them switch the way weapons work. So it shoots, instead of just a grenade launcher, it shoots a thermite grenade that does that wave of fire on the ground. I just like the fact that they're innovating with some of these weapons, and I'd like to see a little more of that if possible. It's not always possible to switch up how a scout rifle or an auto rifle works. It's a machine gun or it's a scout rifle, but to see them just twist the way a grenade launcher works a little bit, happy to see that. That was a cool one to see. Line in the Sand, this one is another one people have been grinding for heavy weapon, especially getting, you know, firing line and then triple tap, rapid hit. Rapid hit and fireling, this thing has a chance to be pretty powerful in the DPS categories. They're really trying to make linear fusions happen. I guess we'll see if they ever actually do. But if you got the right roll on Line in the Sand, it has potential to be useful in quite a bit of PvE activities. Over on the other page, no major real standouts like Patron of Lost Causes can roll with something like Vorpal Weapon, which, as we are getting a hot hit in sniper damage, if you want that ranged weapon that you can put some boss damage in, Vorpal with a boss spec is going to give you a decent chunk of damage in its primary, so you should have a little bit more ammo. But again, we'll just have to see how most of this stuff irons out. Traveler's Judgment and Jack King Queen, this is an old weapon, but it does have a crap ton of aim assist, so I know people were grinding for this one. Got Traveler's Judgment, it's a sidearm, it's not bad, just nothing crazy. And again, Gallant Charge, it's a solar fusion. I don't think it's going to be anything that people are going to write home about. And while Infinite Paths, we've had it before, it's a decent pulse rifle, but again, it's one of those that I don't see being amazing. I've got a couple decent rolls on it, but overall the weapons are fine. But as, you know, we've talked about the whole weapon retiring and sunsetting after 9 to 15 months and all that stuff, as we kind of feel like, hey, I've got some pulses, I've got some autos, just another set of weapons. Again, it's hard for them to make me really, really be excited about weapons, especially as we've been sitting here in the Tower Obelisk, basically hitting this as a slot machine to see if I get the right roll. Haven't been excited because my journey to get these weapons hasn't really been memorable. I've just been clicking a button and going through bounties and turning in Fractaline, and I've got a lot of weapon options. I'm not going to remember how I get them, or I was in the strike and I got like my perfect drop. That didn't happen. I was just hitting the slot machine button in the tower or an obelisk, and that was basically it. So the journey to the weapons, we almost got showered with them too much, and I know that sounds dumb if you're going for god rolls, but almost too much showering with weapons I feel like actually can be a bad thing. To me. I want to go over a couple other perks. We got Vorpal Weapon. It may have technically been introduced a little while ago, but it's a little more popular this season. Increased damage to bosses, vehicles, and guardians in their with their super active. It's a very specific one, but I mean, picture like this Patron of Lost Causes. I've got rapid hit, so I'm dumping a lot of damage into hopefully critical spots on a boss. I have extra boss damage, and then I can throw boss spec on it on top. For a primary weapon, it's actually going to have a decent amount of bonus to bosses, which, as a primary weapon, sometimes you run out of heavies or you run out of special. This is a good way to, again, maybe maintain some range at a primary point. Maybe you're in a tough spot, able to put out, like, you know, 25-30% more damage with the perks I got. Vorpal's not bad, but again, it's like standard enemies or majors or just rank and file basics. This isn't going to do quite as much, so this is definitely going to steer more towards bosses or guardians in their super if you're trying to shut people down. People are going for it. It's got some hope to be decent, as some people are kind of holding on to some rolls with this thing. I just don't know if in the long run it's going to be that like absolute must-have meta thing. I just don't know. Can't quite tell. So another perk we got this season was Lead from Gold. To me, it doesn't really resound as anything exactly powerful. Picking up a heavy weapon, picking up heavy ammo also grants ammo to this weapon. In general, that's almost backwards, because while heavy doesn't come up that often, I'm going to probably get special more frequently. So if I'm loaded to get ammo for my special weapon, Maybe. Now, if you set your entire loadout to be like, all right, I want machine gun scavenger double, I want machine gun ammo finder, and you're picking that up and that's how you're loading your special weapon more frequently, that may be a way to use it, but then you're giving up other perks typically to use lead from gold, usually which ones are going to be more powerful, like demolitionist, for example, as opposed to lead from gold. So lead from gold may be okay, but I'm just not seeing it as being a awesome perk per se compared to some others. I mentioned osmosis already, but again, it is very niche in what I see it's used to be for. Solo, match game, Nightfalls. Like, anything with match game, typically you're probably going to want, a lot of people are going to go run that with a group because it's a more difficult activity. And therefore, you can, if you talk a little bit ahead, be like, I've got Solar and Void, I've got Void and Arc, I've got Arc and Solar, I've got my 3 damage types covered between us, we should be okay. Majorly, this is like a solo person's challenge, Esoteric and the Solo Nightfallers, which I used to do. I need to kind of get back into that. This is where I see this coming in, to be able to have a kinetic and say, like, I've got an arc shot, I've got an arc sniper rifle, I've got Hammerhead as my machine gun, and I'm running a solar subclass. And in that moment where, hey, there's a solar shield that comes up and I just really don't want to blow a grenade or super on it, or I know there's multiple in a certain section, I can throw a grenade, use this to break those shields, knock them out, and then be able to move on. But it's a pretty niche situation that I see this thing being useful. So overall, it's not anything that stands out, except for, again, as I said, specific situations like that. Final perk is Elemental Capacitor that we got this season. Basically, depending on your subclass that you run, you're going to get a little bit of boost to reload speed, handling, or stability. Now, some ways I could see this being synergistic, and then on the other side, some things that probably won't make sense. Grenade launchers are Void. That's going to be the Void affinity for armor, so if I'm running a Void subclass, that's going to help me with stability. But again, it really kind of determines, all this stuff gets to be a little bit, honestly, convoluted. So yeah, getting a little reload speed if I roll a solar subclass, I can see that being beneficial on my grenade launcher. But if I'm running Arc, I get handling. Okay, maybe that's not really what I'm going for, but maybe I'm running Void. I don't have the reload speed that I want, but I need to have my bubble. It's kind of there, you're kind of playing at 2 strings there, and you can't pull it at both ends. So it could be something I could see them shift around a little bit, or, have some little more specific perks. But moving shot subclass around to get a little boost to stats, kind of cool concept, but I don't think it greatly executed. As for the Dawning Seal itself, hopefully some of you guys got Saver. I think it is one of the more common seals that have been actually completed out there percentage-wise. Most of it is related to, doing your Resonance rank and doing the Satan 14 missions, doing what you need to do in, Legendary Sundial, and doing a Sundial fast, not dying. None of it was overly difficult. Make sure you get all the exotics and all of that. The annoying part, I would say, for everybody is the collection. Now, the collections in and of themselves aren't ridiculous. I mean, you go Titan, you go Hunter, you go Warlock, and you're like, okay, I got most all of it. And a lot of it just comes from the pieces of armor, get the exotic this season, get the rituals, pick up one of each weapon, which was not hard to do. But I do have to get this out there. When it comes to the collections, it's the emblem ones, and is those grinds that you have to do. At least it was a little shorter this season on the Vanguard. You had to do 2 phases of strikes as opposed to 3. And then even Gambit as well, like the fact that I was done with Python long before I finished what I needed to do for the Gambit emblem. I know they want people in playlists, but it's just the requirements are a little, I want some variety in there. It's just like, do these things, kill these enemies over and over and over, get solar kills, and get a certain number of points in strikes. Like, you want me to go play strikes, but I have to do a Nightfall of 920, but the regular strike playlist isn't going to help. Like, if you want me in Vanguard strikes, like, give me options. Maybe some points, maybe some regular Vanguard strike playlists, and just give me some variety, because if I just sit there in the 920 over and over and I want to grind this thing out one week, I'm playing the strike over and over and over in 1 week to get this one emblem, and it's just like, how many times I'm going to repeat that 920 Nightfall with people? Kind of frustrating. So I would like to see some variation, maybe not quite as much of a grind even on these seals, as there's enough stuff to do for just the collection. Don't make me forced to spend, like, hey, the number of times in strikes. That just doesn't feel quite as fun. That may be me, but I'd like to see some variation when it comes to the emblem requirements and those little quest steps that we've got to go through. Overall, seal wasn't too bad. I know quite a few people got it. I think it's going to be one of the more popular ones to see around, but yeah, give me a little love, little variety of the emblem department, because those grinds are a bit long. So we had the Dawning this season. We had not a whole lot new in both of the seasonal events. I've actually got to be honest. Both the Dawning and Crimson Days, which you can tell I have not played much Crimson Days, Crimson Days had the exact same weapon as last time, not even a second one to go for. Like, I could go for the Vow, but I already had it. It was the curated rolls, the same thing. So I literally did a couple bounties, I picked up one of the 2 sparrows, and I was done. Not really a lot of incentive. Now, some people like Crimson Days, the special boost when your abilities together, which I was in one match and it just turned into grenade spam, which was a little crazy. And then on the other side, you've got the Dawning, which had the same sparrow. They added another sparrow, which means you had to bake a bunch more stuff. The main benefits to the Dawning was the double XP for people who wanted to grind out the bounties for ranks, which was kind of boring. And then I've also got to say that Riven Cookie, yeah, most likely, please don't put something in the middle of a raid again. That's like just to go give a cookie to a little snowball in the ground. That's not cool. I mean, it may be somebody be like, hey, how do I get in this raid? But then somebody's got to figure out, this is how you put the wish in the wall. Then you fly in here. Then I got to figure out where to fall. If you want somebody to get in a raid, give me a different reason, not just to go give a cookie to a big, giant Ahamkar dragon. Cool dragon. I don't want to give it a cookie, though. Don't make me do that again, please. So yeah, both events, like, I mean, the Dawning got a lot of people experience because you did a lot of bounties and a lot of cookies and materials and stuff like that. But unfortunately, both of these between Crimson Days, the bow being exactly the same, couple sparrows is cool. The Dawning, again, lots of double EXP. And again, they're like, oh, you can get some Bright Dust. You can get double Bright Dust. It's still such the tiniest little bits of Bright Dust. If you want me to actually try and build up a little bit of Bright Dust instead of eventually run out, you got to give me a little more. So the Bright Dust bonuses need a shift again. I need to get a little bit more back there. That's just me, though. Now, on the PvP side, we got 2 things. One, we got the PvP map Rusted Lands that returned, which is kind of honestly a fan favorite from a lot of people. I enjoy the map, and it's honestly been preparation for what is coming next season. We know Trials of Osiris is coming. That's a big deal. 3 more maps coming back that were built in D1 with Trials was popular, so those 3v3 setups feel good. And again, Elimination has been here for that kind of testing, and it's a popular mode for some people to play. Trials is going to be there practicing pretty much all the time. So Elimination coming back, I think, was a good step to help the PvP community and the Crucible community. For one, lead into obviously helping develop Trials and, you know, balancing and figure out what they wanted to do with it. But also I know, you know, Elimination is here. Maybe we get Rift next season or more modes or something like that. However they do Crucible, they do continue to need to evolve this thing. And I know they only have so much bandwidth to work with, which is the tough part of they can only do so much each season. 1 PvP map, not bad. Like to see 2. We're getting 3 this next season because we do have Trials coming back. But then if you take season 11, whatever's going to be in June, are we only going to get like 1 or 0 if it's more of a PvP story focused season? They just got to make sure and continue to help out the PvP community, give them as much as they can in help. Trials is going to be a big help there. There's going to be a lot of Trial streamers coming back for it, and the competition. We got Pinnacle rewards that potentially are going to be in there, and all that's a good thing. But as for Season of Dawn, just getting Elimination to kind of work out the kinks for Trials in 1 map, it's kind of a weak addition to Trials. Hopefully the love to Crucible gets to continue after Season of Worthy. That pretty much wraps it up, though. I mean, yeah, we got a solar subclass update. We're going to be seeing some changes to subclasses going forward. But all in all, I would say the season itself had some ups and downs. So the ritual weapons amazing? No, but Python's decent. Are the exotic armors good? Most of them really not standouts. Are the exotic weapons cool? They're not bad, but again, you have Bastion, which had a theory to be like, hey, this is kind of cool, but it's a letdown from this giant crazy puzzle. But you also had the Saint 14 missions. We got him coming back. We built the beacon to activate basically Trials of Osiris next season. So this season overall hasn't been bad. I mean, Sundial itself was a huge step up from Vex Offensive, but it wasn't quite Menagerie. We're getting there. But again, if you do a 6-person match-made activity every season, those are going to get samey as well. It seems like we're going to get a shift of that next season. But I would definitely say Vex, the Season of Undying versus Season of Dawn. Season of Dawn, hands down, better in almost every way. Now, Shadowkeep is usually coupled with Season of Undying, but Shadowkeep is always going to be there. The moon stuff is still going to be there. Season of Undying was like public events, and the Vex Offensive is pretty small. Season of Dawn being 3 months of content for $10, honestly a good value. The best season ever? Probably not. If I had to rate this thing, I would probably give it about a 7. Had some things to learn, some different concepts and stuff I like. But again, it's like just certain things don't leave the best taste in your mouth. And then on top of that, you've also got the situation of, you know, big puzzle, kind of let down an exotic. New exotic armor for each class. None of them are really that great. Elimination came back, but that's really to help build Trials for next season. The Dawning and Crimson Days. Nothing too crazy. A lot of XP and bounties to do. So for a $10 season, yeah, it kept me busy. Sundial wasn't bad. You could have played it a lot. You could have played it a little. I really enjoyed the Saint 14's missions, the lore that they're getting into, building the world narrative going forward. Those are ones where I definitely have to keep that in mind. But again, it's that 6 to 7 range where I'm kind of torn. I feel like I'd be 7 to be on the nicer side because it might be like a 6.5 for me. It's been one of my more casual seasons as well, I would say too. So generally, there have been some cool things. The community puzzle, awesome interaction to see that. The streamers building this insane thing over like weeks and stuff like that, and everybody getting together. Sundial, huge step up from Vex Offensive, and more things to learn from there. Boss variation, only weapons, but I got to get some armor in there. So again, they're continuing to learn and evolve this game, and it's always they're like taking like 2 seasons ago to learn what they're going to put into this one. So this one hopefully will help them learn what they're going to put in September. That's my review. A lot of things in here, 6.5 to 7, somewhere in that range. Not bad, not amazing. Well worth plenty of stuff to do for your $10, but again, we will have to see what comes next season and keep comparing these as we go. But as for Season of Undying versus Season of Dawn, yeah, Season of Dawn kicks the crap out of Season of Undying. No question there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the season, and I will see you tomorrow. I'll be live streaming as soon as things go up. So look for me on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Ebontis. That'll be like noon Central Time for me due to the time change. You can follow me on Twitch. On Twitter, and also here if you enjoyed the video, drop a like below, leave a comment, hit that subscribe button. You guys can find me on Patreon if you want to support me directly as well. Thank you very much for the Patreon supporters I do have out there. I'm working on putting a page up for you guys to start shouting you out directly. Have a great one. I'll see you soon. Enjoy your new season tomorrow.